All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular council meeting for Monday, July the 13th at 6 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is going to be recorded for public viewing and pleasure. And with that, do I have a motion to adopt this evening's agenda? So moved by Councillor Glenn, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. I remind everyone if they have a conflict of interest this evening, if there's forms up in the cabinet, please pass it into the clerk stating the reason of the conflict. And with that, we'll move on to item number 4, adoption of the minutes, and item 4.1, special council meeting from April the 7th, 2026. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes? So moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Gallant. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. You're functioning on the screen. Okay. Moving on to item 4.2, special council meeting, virtual, May the 8th, 2026. Do I have a motion to accept? Moved by Councillor Glant, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 4.3, special council meeting, oath of office, June the 8th, 2026. Do I have a vote or a motion to
So moved.
see? Thank you, Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 4.4, committee of the whole meeting, June the 22nd, 2026.
Oh, so moved.
So,
Sorry.
Thorne, seconded by Councillor Bannister. They're gonna get harder as we go along.
Sorry.
All right. Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. We're gonna now move on to item number 5, consent agenda items which you received in your council package. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Councillor Cote?
So moved.
Okay, so motion to approve the consent agenda by Councillor Cote and seconded by Councillor Bannister.
Yes.
Questions to the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item number 6, public administrator presentations, item 6.1, presentation of awards for Solidarity from CAMA, the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. And with that, I believe we'll bring up Eve. Introduce himself to,
You want the video first or after?
No, we'll finish.
all right, finish the back.
Good evening, Mayor Campbell, council members, staff, firefighters from the village of Salisbury. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having the pleasure to present this award to you tonight. As Mayor Campbell said, I'm here to represent the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. And I'm here to present the town of Salisbury with the Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Award for municipalities with population under 20,000. I am Yves Legier. I'm the CAO for the town of Shediac. I'm also the CAMA's board representative at large for municipalities under 100,000. Unfortunately, our president, also a New Brunswick CAO, Mark Melanson from the city of Dieppe, he had a council meeting and he couldn't attend tonight, but he sends his regrets and also his congratulations for the award. I'd also like to extend a sincere congratulations to Austin and thank him for his membership, his outstanding support for our association. It was wonderful to see you in Whistler last month, CAMA, where you proudly accepted the award alongside Councillor Stephanie Thorne. I also want to thank you for your participation on one of our panels. You provided great insight to our delegates across the country. So thank you for your collaboration on that session. Each year, CAMA honors excellence in municipal administration through the annual awards program, recognizing achievements in 4 areas: innovation, environmental leadership and sustainability, inspiring workplaces, and collaborative with external organization with municipalities. These awards celebrate local governments and their chief administrative officers for creative and successful programs, projects, and services. The awards program promotes professional excellence in municipal administration, sharing success stories to inspire new ideas among Camel members and other local government managers for implementation in their own communities. Given Canada's diverse communities, awards for innovation, environmental leadership and sustainability, and inspiring workplace are categorized by population under 20,000, between 20,000 and 100,000, and over 100,000. This year, we received 54 highly qualified nominations. The evaluation criteria includes innovation and creativity, impact on municipal administration, transferability to other local governments, impact on the municipality and organization, and the sustainability and long-term positive impact. Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Award recognize the dedication to environmental and sustainability excellence in projects that meet the needs and the present without compromising the future. This may include standout projects or initiatives or apply to improvements of corporate processes that demonstrate real benefits to environment. Sustainability may refer to both environmental considerations and wider sustainability impact on people, resources, and communities. So we got a little video to play that was played at the annual conference that will probably explain what the project was and the award that was presented. I think Diane's got that queued up.
Salisbury Fire Rescue Station. The town opened the new station in 2025. It is a net zero ready facility that addresses the current and future fire and rescue needs for the town while reducing Salisbury's environmental impact. It is an environmentally sustainable building that beautifies the town's main street and serves a critical function for Salisbury residents. It replaced an outdated station built in the 1970s. The station utilizes renewable energy, including a geothermal heating and cooling system, and collects stormwater to be used for fire suppression, providing 10 times more on-site water than the old fire station. Specific construction methods, including an ICF building envelope, were used to reduce energy consumption. With a 16% annual increase in calls in 2025, the operational effectiveness and safety of volunteers was also top of mind. It has flex office space supporting volunteers who can work remotely. A ground-mounted solar array will be installed in spring 2026. This is expected to power nearly 80% of the building. This project demonstrates a forward-thinking and environmentally innovative town. Congratulations to Salisbury, New Brunswick on winning a CAMA Environmental Leadership and Sustainability Award.
So the award has actually been here since Austin picked it up in May, so proudly displayed, and congratulations to him.
We'll do a picture right afterwards. We'll do the Stanley Cup pose with the fire department. All right. Thank you. Be very appreciated. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 6.2, presentation of recognition awards for fire and rescue from Chief McLeod. Can you top that video, Chief?
I have no video to present to you guys today, but I will maybe work on one next time.
Okay.
Don't. So thanks for having me here, guys, today. I wanted to recognize the firefighters behind me for a call that they made last October, so October 10th at 3 o'clock in the morning. They responded to a motor vehicle accident on the highway. I don't know if, Diane, if you have those pictures there to share, but they responded to a motor vehicle accident on the highway. The car was stuck in the trees. And it was a very unique rescue that needed to be done. The nose was face down, the rear of the vehicle was being held up by the trees. The driver was able to get out on his own, but the passenger was still inside the vehicle. Did not need critical care, but still needed to be rescued from the vehicle. The first thing when you pull up to a scene like this is, before you even want to start working on it, is you want to be able to secure the vehicle so that it's safe for us to be around it, right? Because anything can happen, shift, wind, can just knock that over and arrest you underneath. The team demonstrated all the training and skills that they have, all the equipment that they have to try to secure that car the best they could to go up and rescue the trapped individual from that vehicle. So part of this, Hearst recognizes people that, or firefighters that have these unique rescues and demonstrate, with all the tools that they have, and step up to the challenge to rescue these people. So they recognize them with the Green Cross Award. So I'm going to present the Green Cross Award. There's 7 firefighters that were there that night, and we have 5 in attendance today, and I will present them with their awards. They will receive a certificate from Hearst for the Green Cross Award, as well as challenge coin, the badge. Okay. And no particular order, Brandon McLeod. Stephen Stevens. Sean Ring. Justin Smith. And Captain Roy Steves. Not in attendance with us right now is Captain Ron McCachran and Jill Allard. They're on a road trip to the US to go see some old fire trucks. They just couldn't make it back in time.
We got a picture of the guys here with you, Brad. We're going to picture after.
We're gonna do a picture.
Before we do that, I just wanted to thank you very much for your service and all that you do for our community. You're to be commended, and we're very proud of you. Thank you very much. So with that, do I have a motion to return to recess? Moved by Councillor Bland, seconded by Councillor Bannister. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Contrary minded, we are going into recess. All right, so we're not gonna enter back into regular council session. And I need a motion to enter back in. So moved by Councillor Bannister,
Seconded.
seconded by Councillor Cote. Have a deja vu there. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. We're actually gonna change things around a little bit, and we're gonna have, the AMQ Campbell 580 Air Cadet Squadron and Captain Jason come up to the podium as our commanding officer for the squadron, and, you're going to give us a little bit of an overview.
And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff, guests, with the significant left now.
I mean, I trust you. They didn't want to hear your birthday.
No, my guess is they've got more important things to do.
Yeah.
So, as introduced, I'm Captain Forster. I am the commanding officer of your local air cadet unit. It has been my privilege to be so for the past year. I would like to thank Jason Gallant for mentioning that this might be a good thing to do. Seems to get a new council this year. So I'd also like to introduce Denise Armitage. She's the head of our sponsor committee. So the Air Cadet program is split into 2 distinct arms. We've got the military sponsored side, which I represent, and then the public side, which she represents. She holds and controls all the money. I go to her and beg her. No, actually, she releases it freely as the kids need training. So that's the entire goal of the cadet program. Youth from the ages of 12 up until their 19th birthday are given a safe place to learn, to serve the community, and to advance in something before they become an adult. Right? So that's the motto of the Air Cadets. Serve, to learn, to serve, to advance. Our aim, promote good citizenship and good leadership in the youth of today. Stimulate an interest in the Canadian Armed Forces, and to promote good physical and mental fitness. Really, today's presentation is simply to introduce myself to council, remind you, if you have any youth, any people looking for something to do, you see a kid on the street going, I'm bored. From September till the end of June, the cadet program is there every Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 9. I just sent 4 kids from the cadets from the ages 14 to 19 off to summer training. For 2 weeks, they get paid. 2 of them are learning how to do intro to survival, 1 is fitness, and the other one is introduction to aviation. So let's continue to help grow our youth's development through an organization that is completely free to join. That's very important. A lot of people get all worried about the cost. There's no cost. We give you your uniform, we give you all the training. All we ask is you show up, keep your uniform pressed and neat, and keep yourself happy. All right? Denise, have you got anything to add?
I haven't, you said pretty much everything. I don't have anything to say except you might hear from me if I need something.
Really, Mike.
I promise.
Yeah, she's very good at messaging and asking, and that's what we need. I actually commend all the work that you do, and actually, because you're working with youth, that's one of the things I think we all have to remind our youth is that we need to teach them the word ask, because you don't receive if you don't do that hard thing, sometimes that humbling thing to ask, but you guys do an amazing job teaching our future leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is very much appreciated. And it all comes down to the support of councils like this. If we don't have council and community support, doesn't matter how hard we try, we can't do our job.
And the school. We really,
The school is important. The school that houses us. So if anyone has an in on this new school they're building, make sure they keep us in mind.
Noted.
Noted. Yeah, we're in that discussion right now, so.
All we need is a small space like we have now, just a spot to claim an office, have storage for the cadets, have access to the gym. If we can gain access to a classroom, that's a plus we don't currently have. We're grateful for anything that can be rendered to us. We are here to support the community and develop leaders of tomorrow.
Any questions?
I work at the school and I'd be very interested in seeing how I could help you do some promotion in September, because I know that there are some kids that benefit very much from your program. And there are probably some others that would need a bit more encouragement to develop those skills or to be able to take that step outside of their comfort zone.
That's
And,
exactly what I was hoping to hear.
Right.
When Denise mentioned, yeah, she's in the school, she's like, I'm like, perfect. One of the first things we'd like to do is to get our senior cadets.
Yeah.
Preferably like a mix of people that have gone through the physical fitness side, through the aviation side, some guys, some girls, get them out in front of the younger generation, go, hey, you know what, you're grade 7, you're grade 8, this can happen. I've had kids join at 17 years old, 18 years old, just to get that 1 year in because they want that structure.
Mhm.
For any students that are struggling, the cadet program offers 2 high school credits. So that's something else you can go for a kid that's struggling a bit, doesn't place into the mandatory credits, but some of your option ones, you can give these to help them get that extra step up and graduate on time with all their friends and peers.
also, we used to have recruiting papers in with the counseling. And at the school, I don't know if they can redo that and have them.
You'll reach out to me
Yeah, I
coming
can do
up
that.
in August, the end of September. And we'll see
My
what we
plan
can-
is you'll see emails coming out from me looking to get all these appointments.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
I think 6:30, I didn't think we should go live direct, and we should keep going and then we come back.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 7.1, reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings. We'll go back to item 6.3 later. 7.1, recommendations from committee of the whole, June 22nd, 2026.
So there is 3, I believe, from this meeting, and a corresponding motion with each, but as always, as we bring items from either closed or committee of the whole, we'll read a brief background. And then the recommendation will be on the floor. So the first one, is with respect to the 2025 municipal financial audited statements. As per section 71.1 and 79.3 of the New Brunswick Local Governance Act, at the last committee of the whole meeting, Lise Casey of Ernst & Young or EY appeared before council to present the audited 2025 financial statements for the municipality. The direction of council at that meeting was to bring them forward for ratification at a future, or specifically the July meeting, which we are this evening. And so with that, there's a recommendation on the floor to formally ratify the audited statements.
I move that council adopt the 2025 audited financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2025 as presented.
Moved by Councillor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Glant. Questions for the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 7.2, recommendation from closed meeting.
We're in two.
Or two, sorry, 2, yeah.
2.2,
Yeah.
yeah, 2.2, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
that's okay. So the second one, as council knows, between 2024 and ongoing this summer, the town's been actively constructing new pedestrian trails. At the committee of the whole meeting, also on June 22nd, council approved recommended names from a public survey that was issued last year, Riverside Trail and Heritage Trail. Council will probably recall we did a swap in terms of what the initial names were. So the Heritage Trail will be the name that will go from Parkin Street to Highland Park, which includes the Stone Dust Trail and the boardwalk access point to the park. And then Riverside Trail will be the new trail that's under construction right now that connects the ATV or shared ATV pedestrian trail to the former railway, or the current trestle, former railway trestle near the wastewater treatment plant. And the Dexham Limited wetland. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and I can answer any questions if there are any.
I move that the proposed trail names Riverside Trail and Heritage Trail be accepted. Staff proceed with the installation of wayfinding signage and the installation of interpretive signage to take place at a later time.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Glant, seconded by Councillor Glant. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to the third item in 7.1, regarding community-based parade.
So also from the June 22nd, 2026 committee of the whole meeting, council at the recommendation of the Community Days Committee directed that we no longer hold the parade as part of the Community Days programming, with ratification to follow at a future meeting. As a reminder, the main rationale was declining participation, the Christmas parade being introduced in recent years, seeing much more participation, and also a heightened event calendar throughout the year. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and I can answer any questions as well.
I'll move that Salisbury Town Council approve, as recommended by the Salisbury Community Days Committee, the termination of the Community Days Parade.
I'll
So
second.
moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Bannister. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to 7.2, recommendations from the.
Wait, let's finish 7 and then we'll go back, I think. That's a big thing, yeah. So 7.2, this is a recommendation from a closed meeting, also on June 22nd, 2026. And it's the official ratification of a letter of intent between the town and Horizon Health Network. So since mid-2025, the town's been collaborating with Horizon Health to set up a collaborative care clinic in Salisbury. The town retained Jost Plus Architects to explore existing spaces that may be able to be reutilized or repurposed for such use. It eventually led to further conversations as a result of their space needs on how this might be situated on town land that's not in an existing facility. Horizon proposed a letter of intent, which was what was approved in principle by council on June 22nd in closed session, which essentially will see Horizon and the town cost shared on the construction of a facility or a clinic, with the town becoming the landlord subject to provincial funding. This item has been discussed in closed session on a number of occasions. So generally, when we bring something out of closed, we list the dates in which they were discussed. So this one was discussed again 4 meetings, it looks like, May 12th, 2025, December 8th, 2025, April 9th, 2026, and June 22nd, 2026. And then based on the direction from council, the letter of intent has been sent off to Horizon already. And now we await the confirmation from GMB on specific funding approvals, at which point, then the real fund begins. So with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then can answer any questions that council might have.
I move that council authorize the signature of the letter of intent between Horizon Health and the town.
Second.
By Councillor Bland, seconded by Councillor Bannister. The motion. No questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
Now we'll go back to 3, but just one thing, we're having tech issues with Councillor Linus and Councillor McNeil in terms of muting, yeah, so when they want to speak, they'll raise their hands and we'll keep an eye. But we will unmute them for recorded vote for the rezoning one, just because it has requirements in the Community Planning Act, and it makes it easier if we, have a recorded vote that way. But just as a heads up.
I had that issue too when I was
Yeah,
at the last
yeah.
one.
Okay, back to section 3, right?
Yeah.
Glitch.
First 4.
No, it's section 6.3, presentation of resident surveys, narrative research.
Perfect, okay, so Diane, do you want to bring up those slides?
Just for the record, I actually had said 7.2 when we were done doing
Oh,
that.
right.
You were interrupting me even.
I get the wrong numbers. Wrong.
Just wanted to clarify that. He had me confused, I'm like, what?
Okay, so we have both Margaret and Bo that are with us from Narrative Research. We're gonna have to unmute them though to make sure. So Margaret and Bo, can you unmute? And if so, over to. Perfect, we're good.
Great. Super. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening. We were really pleased to be able to work on this project. And just to introduce myself, I'm Margaret Chapman. I'm COO and partner at Narrative Research, and this is my colleague, Bo.
Yeah, hi, I'm Bo. I'm a research analyst at Narrative Research.
And we're going to give you just a 10-minute, very short tour of the results of this survey, but a much more comprehensive report was provided as well that gives the details of this entire study. So I think someone on your end has got there we go. Okay, wonderful, thank you. So just to give you a quick overview of what we did, it was an online survey that was conducted with adults aged 18 plus and living in the town of Salisbury. We obtained 353 completed surveys. And the way that we did this is that each household was provided with a survey access card. We did this using Canada Post's Neighbourhood Mail program. 3,377 households within the E4J, E4Z, E1G, and E1J postal codes were sent a card, and that card had a survey access code that was unique. And they could either enter that code in online or they could use a QR code to complete the survey. So that meant that we could be assured that the folks completing the survey lived within the area. In the report, there's a really nice map that Bo created that shows the wide range of where people lived within the town, so we can feel really confident that we covered a nice geography within the town in the survey respondents. This was done in March, at the beginning of the month till the middle of the month, so a few months ago. And the average completion time was pretty long at 20 minutes. So we were really pleased to see the high level of response rate. So about 10.5% of the survey cards that were sent out resulted in a completed survey, which is, in our experience as a research company, is a very high level of response for this type of endeavor. So that's great and shows a high level of engagement from residents. You can see in this graphic that includes a whole bunch of information that we got a really good broad range and cross-section of people who live within the town. So cross genders, we had about half men and half women. We had a wide range of ages represented in the data. That 18 to 34-year-old group is notoriously difficult to reach in completing surveys. So having 20% complete the survey was really great. 20% of our survey respondents being in that category is really great. Just over half have lived in the town for a long time, 15 years or more, but we also had a nice representation across newer residents to the area as well. a wide range of number of people in the household and a good representation of people who have children in the household at about a third of the survey respondents. And then across the ranges of household incomes in the previous year, we have a nice range as well represented in this data set. And most of the folks that we talk to are aware that the town of Salisbury is separated into 4 wards. So that gives you a little snapshot of who we talked to and how we got the data that we're going to give you an overview of. I'm going to start off with just a very high level set of objectives and what we found, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail in some of the key areas. So if we could go to the next slide. It's going to give you 4 key objectives that we tried to achieve in this study and then what we found out. So first off, we wanted to evaluate residents' quality of life and their perceptions of living in Salisbury. And really positively, residents really reported a strong quality of life, self-reported. They told us that they enjoy living in Salisbury primarily because of the rural lifestyle. Maybe they have family ties in the area, but they also enjoy being close to Moncton. The quality of life, when we ask people for a bit of a sense of momentum, has really remained stable or improved since the 2023 municipal reform among people who've been around since that change. So those were all very positive results. We also wanted to look at the satisfaction with municipal services and identify any key areas of improvement. Residents are really positive about the various levels of municipal services that they do receive. And then Bo will take you through an open-ended question that we asked about what key areas need improvement, and roads and infrastructure really stand out as the top area for improvement. That's unaided. We also wanted to assess support for municipal initiatives and willingness to pay additional taxes as a trade-off for additional services. They're pretty divided in the results that we received on whether that people would support additional property taxes in order to have an indoor recreation facility or additional health services. And perhaps not surprisingly, as you'll see in the graphic on a subsequent slide, the supporters for increased taxes in exchange for those kinds of services would prefer modest increases over more sharp increases. We also finally wanted to look at community engagement, safety perceptions, and assess town communications and whether those are meeting residents' needs. And overall, we found that residents do generally feel safe, but improving safety and policing remains a top priority. People want to feel safe where they live, not surprisingly. People do view the town communications really positively, and there's a clear preference, as we'll show you, for digital channels like social media, and email was also preferred as a way to receive information. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll see that we asked people to start off, what is the most important reason that you chose to live in Salisbury? And people told us pretty overwhelmingly that they like the rural lifestyle. You'll see that these responses add up to a lot more than 100%, and that's because people could choose more than one reason that they want to live in Salisbury. So there's family connections, there's closeness to Moncton, there's affordability, there's a sense of community, lower property taxes, safety and low crime, and recreation opportunities, as well as access to services that are nearby, which is related to that proximity to Moncton. Really positively, when we ask people to rate on a 0 to 10 scale the quality of life that they have in the town of Salisbury, we have 82% giving us scores of 7, 8, 9, or that superlative score of 10 out of 10. So overall, that's really positive. You can't please everyone. However, 5% of people rated the quality of life in the town of Salisbury as poor to some extent, with a score of 0, 1, 2, or 3. And we can move on to the next slide. So this is that sense of momentum. So if anybody has lived in the town for 5 years or more, they were asked this question. And we said, has there been a change in the overall quality of life compared to before that municipal reform in 2023? And 32% said it's gotten better, 45% said it has stayed the same, and 12% said it's worsened. 11% weren't quite sure. So this is a subset of people who've lived in the town for a little bit longer, but generally the momentum is that it's either improved or stayed the same. And moving on to the next slide. When we asked about how satisfied people were, again on that 0 to 10 scale, and we grouped the top scores of 7, 8, 9, or 10 into the positive group. So these are those dark teal bars of percentages. 78% are satisfied with the town as a place to live. 71% are satisfied as a place to retire. 69% are satisfied with the town as a place to raise a family. 62% say it's a great place and they're satisfied with recreation and play in the town. But fewer say that they're satisfied as a place for young people, and far fewer, just 23%, say they're satisfied with the town as a place to work. We can move on to the next. This is highly related, we find in our research, that if you're satisfied, you're more likely to recommend whatever the place or service is. And similar to satisfaction levels, which were at 82%, here we have 74% of people saying that they would recommend the town of Salisbury as a place to live. Just incidentally, that gap between 74% and 82% is not unusual, because sometimes people say, well, I wouldn't tell people what to do. I wouldn't recommend something to others unless I was asked. So that's sometimes why we see a little bit of a difference there. But 30% gave that superlative score of I definitely would recommend the town of Salisbury as a place to live. So that's very positive in terms of results. And then
yeah, I can take it from here.
Great.
So when asking residents how important, oh, just the next slide, I think.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So when asking residents how important 11 possible initiatives are, 2 rose clearly to the top, with improving streets and roads and providing additional health services, each rated important by nearly 9 and 10 residents. And then we see those less important ones, which were improving internal governance and investing in a municipal water system. We can move to the next one. So turning to how the town is currently performing, residents rate municipal services positively overall, with 6 and 10 giving high marks, so that top box score again of 8 to 10. And then looking across specific services, fire rescue stands out as the clear strength, while law enforcement, both bylaw and RCMP, see the lowest performance ratings. We can move on. All right, so then we asked about satisfaction with aspects of municipal services in the town, and we see that residents are most satisfied with the reliability and professionalism of municipal services, while effectiveness and value for money lag behind. And then we asked a completely optional open-ended question where residents could type anything they wanted, and then we took all those verbatim answers, read through their responses, and put them into these categories. And we saw that when asking residents which, if any, municipal services need improvement, street, road, and bridge infrastructure and maintenance are deemed the primary service areas in need of improvement by quite a wide margin compared to those other ones. We can move on. Great. So there is limited support for paying additional property taxes for an indoor recreational facility, while residents are more closely split on paying more for additional health services. Although, perhaps unsurprisingly, in both cases, supporters prefer smaller tax increases when asked how much they'd be willing to spend. And we can move on. Oh, we can move to the, oh.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, maybe it's, oh, sorry. Residents are also split on whether they feel they receive good value for their municipal taxes, with similar proportions rating the value as very good and poor. And another unaided open-ended question, we asked where the town should invest more, and priorities are much clearer, with transportation and street and road improvements emerging as the top area by a wide margin. We can move to the next one. So a strong majority of residents feel safe living in the town of Salisbury. That said, residents believe increased policing and police presence would improve safety across the town. But again, we see very high top box scores with 80% there. Move on. Residents are generally satisfied with town communications. There is a clear preference for digital channels, especially social media and email. And then we can move on. Once again, and a completely open-ended question, we asked residents if they have any final comments. Final comments reflect both positive feedback and ongoing concerns, with 2 in 10 residents saying something about council doing great work. However, some residents note areas for improvement such as infrastructure, taxes, and recreation. And then we just have a question slide.
So we do have, just for our own formalities on our end, so Margaret, bear with us. We have a recommendation on the floor just to formally accept or receive the findings. And then also enter into a kind of reoccurring biannual process like this. As council knows, for new ones, this is the first time we've done something like this. And we're going to replicate or propose replicating what some other municipalities do on a biannual basis, and then try to filter in some of these comparable answers and some of the reoccurring public engagement processes that we have, so we can try to see some trends year over year in between those processes. So
we gotta do the first motion and then do questions. We can do both.
we can do, it's all one. Oh, that we've split them. Okay, perfect. Okay, so yeah, so then we can do them both. And
Okay, so we have motion 6.3 regarding the results as presented.
I move that council accept the results as presented by Narrative Research for the 2026 Town of Salisbury Resident Survey and direct administration to publish a summary of the results for residents.
It's moved by Councillor Lance, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. We have a second motion as well. That's regarding formalizing the recurring residential survey. Would like to read that motion?
I can do it. I'll move that council direct administration to formalize a reoccurring resident survey process with biannual market research firm-led surveys and internal town-led surveys during off years to continue collecting benchmark data for residents on their priorities and concerns.
Second.
It's moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Lance. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor? Aye. Very minded, motion carried. I guess we really shouldn't pass that personally. If somebody has questions.
Oh, that's true. We can still receive the result and now we get clarification.
That's correct, okay. Questions for Narrative Research?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, and so does Holly. Let Holly go first.
Hi, thank you for your report. And I don't question the firm's, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't question at all your firm's ability to carry out the survey, but I'm struggling to understand how 10.5% is considered a very good result. And even though, like, out of the 353, we have a good cross section of our demographics. But 2 questions: can you help us understand the reasoning or the industry benchmarks behind this assessment? And I also understand that prizes were offered for an incentive for people to fill in the survey. And do you have any suggestions on how to increase any experiences that you have on increasing people filling it out?
Yeah, really good questions. And I think everybody probably initially has that kind of thought of, wait a minute, we're not getting everybody to respond. So how do we know that this 10% is actually representative of our group as a whole? If you talk to the folks at Statistics Canada who try to do a census, which is a complete representation of everyone in the population, you'll know how difficult it is to get above certain levels. For comparison purposes, we normally get in the range of 2 to 3% response rate for any kind of public survey like this. And for in terms of representing a group, our benchmark, if you look at like statistical theory, a size of 400 for even the province of New Brunswick is actually considered a statistically reliable sample. So having 353 of 3,000 is really very strong, and you can feel really good about that. And it does boggle the mind a little bit as you think, what about all those, that like 89% who didn't respond? But you're going to necessarily get a non-response bias. There's going to be people who just don't do surveys. There's people who may not have picked up their mail. There's people, this is, remember, one person in a household too. So you're probably representing more than 300, you're kind of representing at least 700 or up to 1,000 different people because of the nature of people not just being single person households. So the math kind of backs it up, but I absolutely understand the drive to reach more and more people. Some people do surveys just because of prizes as well, like they're motivated by that chance to win something. But we do see that on something like this, we're not incenting every single person to do the survey. We're giving everybody a chance to win a prize. So we don't feel like we're getting people just racing through the survey in order to get that 20 Aeroplan points or whatever. They're doing it because they care. They're spending 20 minutes for a chance to win a prize. So I think you can feel really good about that representation, even though I understand the question for sure. Yeah. So increasing prize numbers and draws does increase participation if you wanted to look at that in future, but there's a bit of diminishing returns after a point. I think you achieved something really positive here with over 10%.
Thanks, muted again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
One thing too to add to that will give us an example is if when we do like our own public engagement surveys on XYZ project, to have a response like this, it will be 800 residents. I can guarantee you right now, we're never gonna have a project that we have 800 respondents to a survey, so.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
the easiest, that's the easiest, I shouldn't guarantee it, I'm just quite confident that it will be pretty hard to get. So we also had the kind of same questions, and as it was going, I forget the exact number, but I want to say we needed to reach the 5% response rate, I think it was, Bo Margaret, to be able to like sample it based on former village and outside areas. So like every day we would get an update saying we've had X amount of responses between yesterday's update, here's where we're at percentage wise. And so every day it was like, that's the first thing I did was like refresh my email and say like, are we at 5%? Are we at 10%? So,
Yeah.
they keep a close eye on those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
One other comment, the other way to increase participation is to have shorter surveys. So there's this kind of trade-off of all the information that you want to get, plus trying to get people to spend some time doing the survey for you. So if you can get it under 10 minutes, it does increase the response rate. But there's that, do I want more information kind of trade-off.
Yeah.
Well, that was basically my question, Holly. So thank you for presenting those questions, because they are very important questions. The only other thing that I'd like to add to that is we could have increased those numbers if each household would have been allowed to have each member of the household participate, because clearly my answers and my husband's answers or my son's answers, who is a young adult, would have been completely different. So you could have had 3 surveys completed versus the 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's an important factor that we have to consider going forward. I don't want to just have one person in the household. I want everyone in the household to be able to participate in the survey. And that way we're getting more voices being heard.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's tricky to do that without the risk of having people potentially complete the survey more than once. Because if you put more access codes on a single card that's mailed out to a single person household, they could do the survey 3 times, for example. So, but there are ways that we could potentially get around that. Again, there's trade-offs in the methodology. But I agree with you. Your views are not going to be necessarily the same as other people who live in your household. So it could be important to try and find a way to get multi-person households to complete the survey.
I don't think somebody's going to sit there and spend 40 minutes to just do a repeat.
Probably not.
Do it a couple times.
Why do they want that gift card?
The gift card, yeah.
See, I wouldn't even fill it out for the gift cards. There's many different.
There's one piece that I think to help that too, from like a learning from our perspective, is we did, like Margaret was mentioning, we did unaddressed postcards using Canada Post mailing rooms, which many of you have heard me air my grievances and the challenges with that, with our mail outs and everything else. And I think Probably what we'll recommend doing the next time is more of a targeted one, like we have access to who lives at each house, so, go kind of the extra mile and
We
do
have the
that.
Elections Canada, like
Yeah,
Elections
we
New
can-
Brunswick
we can
list, like,
Use that data and target in on them, because a lot of times, like, I'm in this group of people where they see these things and they get them in the mail and they don't go and enter the access code. So, it's hard, like, then we heard people say, oh, like, I think I remember seeing that, but I threw it out, and then it's too late, like, they can't get an access code. We had Canada Post issues, which, Bo had an incredible amount of patience with, throughout the process, for which we are eternally grateful. So there's those learnings, I think, too, that will help us target people more, because then not only do we have the addresses, but technically we do have each individual person. So like,
That's
if we
right.
really want to do that, we could explore that, but those are things I think that like we kind of had our own like procedural learnings, I think that will be helpful for future ones that we'll take into account as we try to increase
I'd like to get the number.
response rate. Yeah.
Great questions, Councilor Burns.
Just a quick, it's more internal, for narrative research, but I'm just wondering, like, what's our action item that comes out of this? Like, are we reporting this in the annual report to let people know, or is it, and is it just like a tool that we keep in our back pocket as we're working on our strategic plan, just to try to keep improving that overall satisfaction rate, or are we targeting things?
All of the above, I guess, technically.
That was
So,
a random
yeah,
question.
we're
to
not,
ask.
no, it's a good one. It's a
Spew
good one.
everything out.
It's a good one. So, this was brought up when we first started our strat planning conversations in 2023, like
Right.
for our last one. And at that point, the kind of general consensus was that we weren't comfortable enough going out saying the town's doing a survey when people were still not even knowing if they were
Yeah.
living in the town. So, the conversation started this time with around levels of service. We were talking about events and like general satisfaction. So that kind of led us to this, but the real intent and the kind of strategic purpose is that there will be at the start of this RAP plan, it will say like, here's a survey that was done that informed kind of some of these priorities basically, and we'll have some of the graphs and the visuals associated to it. So it won't be in the annual report, but it will be in the strat plan, like the final strat plan. And the other piece is that I would argue like the most valuable data is like this is valuable data, but it will be more valuable 2 years down the road, 4 years down the road.
Right.
And we can continue to see the trends. Like I think that's the arguably the more valuable
So
data.
this was like a great baseline for
Yeah,
us,
it's
and
the
now
first-
we can
yeah.
work.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
I think that captures, that was the intent in 23 when the conversation came up the first time too, so, yeah.
All right. Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much for all of your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item number 8, reports from administration, 8.1, rezoning introduction, Sunrise Avenue, Twilight Avenue, Salisbury. Bid number 010896606 and 705-568-167.
Perfect. Sam's on with us too. You can send him the request. I have a bit of a preamble, before we pass it over to him. But as council knows, the town owns about 28 acres between the existing Hilltop subdivision and Sunrise and Twilight Avenues. It's a bit unconventional for the municipality to give a preamble like this before the planner introduces a rezoning, but the town is technically the applicant for this. And we are bringing things out of essentially closed session, so we wanted to give a bit of background before we pass it over to Sam to do the Community Planning Act requirements. But essentially, at this point, the town is considering, or council is considering processing a rezoning for this parcel of land that Sam will speak to, and I'll let him talk about the land use changes that are being proposed. But for background, the town registered an EIA, or an environmental impact assessment, in 2025. And then early this year, we received that ministerial determination to proceed. A number of background steps have been done to date, including through that EIA process. We've signed a letter of intent with the Lions Villa to earmark some portions of this land, which are actually the reason that we have to do the rezoning in the first place. It is permitted to do residential development otherwise, but there are some components there that Sam will speak to. There's been a number of milestones that are included in the CRF. I'm not going to run through all of them, but I will call out that there were a couple that were in closed sessions. That includes on March 24th, 2025, under section 68(1)D of the Local Governance Act. and August 11th, 2025, under also section 68(1)(d) of the Local Governance Act. So should council choose to proceed, it will start the public process. It's not a decision this evening, other than starting that process. The other piece that I'll mention from our perspective is that the town last year passed an enhanced notification policy, it's called. So the Community Planning Act dictates what we have to do from a public engagement perspective in any rezoning application, but we have a policy that basically goes a little bit further, which includes signage and outlines what we normally do online. So social media, website, that type of additional communication. We also sent an email today to anybody who weighed into the EIA process for this project to say, just as an FYI, this process is starting. We do anticipate that it will be a process that will have public engagement, and the public will be looking forward to weighing in. So as per that enhanced community notification policy, we have booked the Lions Club for the public hearing so that we can have more space for individuals to express their support or objections. For our new councillors, the rezonings take several months. So that's why they are starting now. Funding applications are in the queue and will continue to be evaluated by the province and the feds, and are really contingent. This project is contingent on those favorable responses, but the land use process does take many months. So with that, I will pass it over to Sam for the presentation. You can share the screen, and then there are 2 recommendations on the floor afterwards, and we'll unmute the 2 councillors that are online as well, just so that they are muted from that section as well. So Sam, Diane will share the presentation, and then it is over to you.
That's great. Thank you, Austin, and good evening, Your Worship, councillors, members of the public. Yeah, nice to have a preamble before my presentation. So I'll try not to be too repetitive of what Austin has said, but I guess in general, we'll walk through a little bit of background on the project, and then kind of, I guess, more details on what amendments are needed and kind of what are proposed to Salisbury's bylaws that would allow the project. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Diane. In general, there's kind of 2 categories of changes that council would consider with this project. One of them is a text amendment to the municipal plan and to the zoning bylaw. So essentially changing the way that this regulation and policy works so that this project can fit within it. But that also means that it will kind of open it up to the public and future landowners, developers, that could also make requests to this same new zone that we're proposing here as a part of this project. So what we're proposing to do is create a new residential zone for this project, which is called residential mix. And then the second part of the amendments that are needed to Salisbury bylaw would be to actually change the zoning of the property today to that new residential mix zone that's created through this process. So it's kind of 2 separate applications, or not applications, but processes. But they will run in parallel, and all of those amendments will go through the same legislative process together and then eventually be adopted at the same meeting, but they are, I guess, slightly different requests. I'll just mention quickly before we move on that the current zoning of the property is residential serviced. So the rezoning request would be just to change the zoning from residential serviced to this new zone residential mix. On the next slide, there is just a quick image of the site plan, which I believe that the councillors and mayor will be familiar with and have seen. But just to talk through this briefly for members of the public, the proposal is really for the extension of public streets, Sunrise Avenue, Twilight Avenue, and they'll connect back through to Deepwood Street. And then it would involve the creation of new lots for residential purposes, as well as some kind of land for public purposes, some stormwater detention areas which overlap with a current wetland, as well as some natural areas that are provided and required as a part of the wetland compensation, as a part of that environmental impact assessment that Austin was talking about briefly. So it's a mix of housing units. In total, it comes to 80 units in the current proposal. There's a mix of single unit dwellings, 2 unit dwellings, and multiple unit dwellings, kind of that 1-story, 3 to 6 at the most units within one building model. So similar to some of the kind of existing townhouse style buildings that exist in Salisbury. Yeah, so maybe on the next slide, we can get into some of the details of the regulations. So yeah, I guess the reason that a new residential mixed zone is needed for this project is because the current zone doesn't allow multiple unit dwellings as a use. So while there are multiple unit buildings in other parts of the town, there's different zoning in those areas, and those areas aren't really appropriate for this area, kind of off to towards the edge of the growth boundary away from the former village center. So that former village center allows the multiple unit dwellings, and so does the residential neighborhood service zone, which runs along the Route 112, kind of between Trans-Canada Highway and the village center. So neither of those zones are really intended to be this kind of residential alone use, and they allow other commercial uses with it. So the proposal itself is purely for residential use, and we wouldn't really have that mixing of commercial uses together within the same neighborhood. So because the scope of that project is a little bit different from the zones that exist today, that's the rationale for creating the new residential zone. And yeah, I guess just in general, like this zone will now exist if council considers it. Other folks will be able to make requests to rezone to this zone. So the intention is for it to be at a larger kind of neighborhood scale and allow developers to have a little bit more flexibility with what types of housing they provide. So the development process is long and complicated, and sometimes they might kind of start the process and it may be 3, 4, 5, even 10 years before they're actually getting to building out those housing units. So if the zone allows a little bit of flexibility to provide a 2-unit building, a multiple unit building, or a single, it can allow the developer to provide those different options to the housing market once they're ready to build, and that can help to accommodate people and allow more housing to get built, which may improve some affordable housing options in the town. Move to the next slide. Yeah, so I guess I talked on this briefly, but yeah, just make sure council recognizes that creating a new zone will mean that you may receive future rezoning requests to the zone. We are suggesting that there's kind of explicit policy language that makes it clear that this proposal should only be considered at a neighborhood scale. So it wouldn't be an individual lot by lot request that could be received. Somebody who owns only a single family house couldn't make a request to council and say, I want to rezone to residential mix to allow a multiple unit building. They would have to kind of provide a full scoped out kind of master planned-ish neighborhood with public streets, station connectivity, and make sure that some of those important elements for community building are addressed through their proposal. And then as well, just mention that we're also proposing to limit the number of units per multiple unit dwelling at 6. So some of the other zones in Salisbury would not cap the number of units at 6, but we are proposing to do that with this one, and to limit the height of the multiple unit buildings at the same as a single or 2-unit building. So the intention of that is that those multiple unit buildings fit a little bit better with the singles and 2-unit buildings that will be near them, and kind of have that low rise residential kind of form-based neighborhood that's all together. So just to quickly talk through the planning rationale for the rezoning part of the application. The Sunrise Twilight area, it is within the urban growth boundary. So Salisbury Municipal Plan has kind of already identified this as somewhere where we do want to see more growth and more residential development. And we do have kind of the extension of those public streets, which provide connection between existing streets and neighborhoods. And that's generally considered to be a good thing when you're trying to make those more connections, allow people more options, and it's generally a positive characteristic. And then, as Austin has mentioned, there are preliminary servicing studies and environmental impact assessment that has already begun. So a lot of those questions that we often have for projects at the outset, can this be serviced? Are there environmental concerns? All of those elements are kind of already underway and have started to be addressed by the town. Finally, just have this quick quote from the municipal plan shown up on the screen so the councilors can read it, just to show that the Salisbury Municipal Plan has kind of identified this seniors housing and more diverse and affordable housing as a real priority for the town. And given that that is really the intention of this project, there's a good fit there. So there's good policy support for council to consider these amendments in the existing municipal plan. Okay, next slide. So this slide is, I guess, a little bit more technical, but just to highlight exactly what changes would be added to the municipal plan. So we will formally add the new zone residential mix, suggesting that we would also add a policy statement to guide council when they're considering future requests to the residential mix zone. So it would guide staff and council to look at requirements for the scale of the proposal, kind of like I spoke to earlier about it being at the neighborhood scale. We would require some kind of diversity of housing types that's provided through the proposal. We would require people to address servicing and drainage, amenity space, transportation, and potentially buffering from neighboring properties. As well, we will amend the zoning bylaw to kind of have all of those detailed standards and regulations in place that would implement this. So all of those standards like lot sizes and setbacks and height requirements will probably be the same as the existing requirements for other zones. So we'll just steal what exists already, and that will kind of ensure that what gets built in this residential mix zone matches what we see in the rest of the town. And then finally, yeah, council could also consider a development agreement with this application, which would just be a separate agreement that kind of has conditions and will ensure that all future owners of these lots are bound to the development of the property. So likely this would just be a condition that would say that development shall be consistent or generally consistent with the site plan that's been provided. And that will ensure that people are kind of bought into this vision and they develop what's intended and what's supported by those servicing studies and all of that background work that's happened already. Okay, next slide. So yeah, I'll be here for questions if there are some about process. The resolution is to formally start the Community Planning Act process to adopt these amendments. So it involves a public presentation, a public hearing, requesting views from the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee, and kind of sets the dates for those, which is something that's required in the Act. And if council does not wish to entertain the amendments, the resolution may be denied. Okay, thank you.
So it's two recommendations. Both are very short.
Yeah.
I take the first one as the second one's a bit shorter. So do that. The first one's a little longer.
You can do the first one.
Okay.
We're not doing both.
Or-
I'll move that whereas council has considered an application from the town of Salisbury to amend bylaw number 16, the town of Salisbury municipal plan by adding policy to the residential section and adding new zone residential mix to accommodate the proposed development on the properties known as PID 010-89606 and PID 705-68167. And whereas council has considered an application from the town of Salisbury to amend bylaw number 17, the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw by adding a new zone residential mix to accommodate the proposed development on the aforementioned properties, be it resolved that the council of the town of Salisbury directs that the appropriate bylaws be prepared to amend the municipal plan and zoning bylaw as it pertains to the above noted changes, that the proposed bylaws be referred to the Southeast Planning Review and Adjustment Committee for their views, that the notice of intention requirements of the Community Planning Act be fulfilled with respect to the proposed amendments, and sets the council meeting on August 10th, 2026 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers at the municipal office, 56 Douglas Street, Salisbury, New Brunswick, as the date, time, and place for the public presentation of council's intent to amend the municipal plan, and sets a special council meeting on September 21st, 2026 at the Salisbury Lions Club, 63 Peter Street, Salisbury, New Brunswick at 7 p.m. as the date, time, and place for the public hearing with consideration of objections to the proposed bylaws. So moved.
So by Councilor Fuller, seconded by Councilor Glenn. Questions for the motion?
I have a question. My question, I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but I'm wondering with this residential mixed zone, can we talk about waste collection? Because do we collect residentially up to 4 units and we're proposing a 6-unit max? Like, does that confuse people where like I'm just wondering, is 6 units the right max, or should it be 4? Or do we change that we pick up to 6 residentially? I'm just wondering if we're causing confusion in this zone specifically, because it's gonna be like a neighborhood.
Yeah, good question. Right now it is over 4, so 5 and up. There's a bylaw that's coming to council that's, being introduced in September at committee of the whole, I think. We have Eco 360 coming to make a presentation ahead of us introducing the updated bylaw to match the new waste collection contract. I'm quite confident that it's the same, I think.
Okay.
So I'm gonna circle back on that, but it would mean that they would have to
Have a dumpster
for the ones that are
over 4.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And we would allow, I'm only concerned because if they see their neighbors putting it, like, are we creating mass confusion in
Yeah.
one zone?
Good
But
question.
maybe not, I don't know.
I would say right now, there's, some that have been grandfathered in, which we've allowed to be
Right.
grandfathered in, unless they give us a reason not to.
Right.
So we have some properties that we've had to say, like, no, this isn't flying, like you have waste everywhere and it's getting caught up in the plows and everything else. And we've had public complaints and, we've, knowing that a bylaw is coming, we've given that flexibility to any multi-unit unless we have a reason like that not to, but we'll check into that because that's a good flag.
There's no reason why they can't have their own bin.
No, I know,
Right.
but like, let's
Or
say you have
dumpster.
like 1 6 unit and everybody else is getting like, I just think they're gonna put it out anyway and cause chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's, we'll look
that's
into
where
the
Brad
logistics
comes
of
into
that.
play.
Yeah, exactly.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Both for
Aye.
one? Okay. Motion carried. Moving on to the second motion.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
I move that whereas council has considered an application from the town of Salisbury to amend bylaw number 17, the town of Salisbury zoning bylaw by rezoning the properties known as PID 010-89606 and PID 705-68167 from residential service to residential mix. Be it resolved that the council of the town of Salisbury directs the appropriate bylaws to be prepared to amend the zoning bylaws as it pertains to the above noted changes. That the proposed bylaws be referred to the Southeast Planning Review and Adjustment Committee for their views. To the notice of the intention requirements of the Community Planning Act be fulfilled with respect to the proposed amendments, and sets a special council meeting on September 21st, 2026 at the Salisbury Lions Club, 63 Peter Street, Salisbury, New Brunswick at 7 p.m. as the date, time, and place for the public hearing of considerations of objections to the proposed bylaws.
Moved by Councilor Bannister, seconded by Councilor Ford. Questions to the motion? Seeing no question of the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
Thank you, Sam.
Appreciate it, Sam.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 8.2. Government of New Brunswick locals rate stabilizer proposed regulation. And there was late addition package today, so.
We didn't show up on them.
So I'm gonna try to give as much context as I can, knowing that it was also added this morning, but I'll give, a caveat that I would have given regardless, is that our agenda package is due on Thursday, and this guide or discussion paper, I think it was called, it was also issued on Thursday, so
Yeah, and we-
Thursday afternoon.
And in fairness, we chatted, and he asked, should we take a stab at it? So we can at least give a little bit, because time is of an essence, the more we get ahead of this right now, just to talk about, because we'll have future discussions on this regardless.
Sure will.
But I appreciate taking a stab at it, because this is complex. And I would state probably the government cannot probably tell you the formulas and what they will need.
It's pretty complicated, and I think that's why there's a few sections in here where it's like, these are illustrations only, and until we see it from the province, don't consider this to be 100% accurate, but the intent is just illustrate some of the implications of this policy, I guess, within the context of our own financial planning. Technically, right now, the discussion paper was issued because the province has a 28-day period commenced for their regulation. So they amended provincial legislation, and then the actual formula for how they determine this rate stabilizer is by regulation. So it's less formal, I would say, than the kind of formal legislation that requires 3 readings in the legislature and so on and so forth, but it forms part of an overarching piece of legislation. So whenever they introduce new regulations or modify them, they have to give this 28-day notice period. So this really is for information. Council can choose if they want to weigh into the regulation. I think to the mayor's point, like, we're gonna have a lot of conversations on this, and quite frankly, the province isn't going to change their regulations between now and when they have to issue us these final numbers. So while we can weigh in, I'm not sure there's much value there. Our representatives like UMB will weigh in on behalf of municipalities, so it's not like there will be no input. But really, we've tried to dive into what this means for us. So a bit of context without reading through the 8 or 9 pages of the CRF is that the province introduced this local rate stabilizer recently as part of their electoral commitment to overhaul the property assessment system. We could have many arguments on the effectiveness of a policy like this, but again, we're diving into what it means for us. What is important to know is that it does not remove council's ability to establish a municipal rate, but what it does do is the province will publish what is called a rate stabilizer. So the province will consider a number of different things. We tried to illustrate in here that basically have 2 buckets that will combine together to make this rate, and council can adopt it as the rate, or council can choose to adopt a different rate with the premise that justification needs to be provided. That's probably the biggest piece of non-clarity that we have right now, is what do we have the ability to say when we're communicating that. In terms of us publishing our budget and publishing the warrant and publishing the tax rate, that is something we do already and will continue to do, but it does sound like there's something that will be inserted into tax bills if council chooses not to accept the rate stabilizer, which is not 100% clear what that would look like yet. So we last year, or technically the budget deliberations for the prior year, basically looked at a 5-year kind of outlook in terms of what we anticipated receiving from property taxes. The majority of properties in the town are under what's called spike protection mechanism. So we anticipated a larger abnormal amount over the next, or technically next year was the last year in our 5-year plan that we anticipated it in our forecast, but that was being cautious. But what that means is that we anticipated seeing about an 11% increase next year. And if the rate stabilizer as is proposed is 1, calculated correctly, and 2, which there's an asterisk there because I make no guarantees at this point. And the second one is the part of it includes a local government cost index, which is basically a municipal consumer price index. So that right now is a projection as well. So assuming those 2 things are accurate or relatively accurate, it'll be, as opposed to 11%, just over 5% that we would see. I would say that we're fortunate that in our region as a whole, not just in the town, that our region continues to see growth. This would be very challenging for some areas that don't see growth, because they will only have the local government cost index, which power goes up more than that, RCMP goes up more than that, insurance goes up more than that. All of those things go up more than that. So in order to adopt the stabilizer, it can mean some more difficult conversations that are put on the municipality, which some may not be used to explaining. Which can cause some challenges. So we are fortunate that we do see growth. So the sky is not falling, I will say, if I use an expression. But it does mean that we see about 350,000, it's just shy of that difference between what we anticipated receiving in 2027 and what we would receive under this hypothetical calculation for the rate stabilizer. So a few different pieces there, because some might see that number and say, oh, like, we're all set, we're good. We do have phased in debentures that we have planned for. So the biggest challenge here is that we've been planning based on these numbers, and these policies throw wrenches into us. Including this year where we had the property assessment freeze. So we've managed and will continue to manage. It just means that we have to constantly adjust our plan, and it makes it challenging. So the phasing debentures is 1. I calculated the 4% increase to RCMP. Hypothetically, that's almost $60,000 off the top right there, which would leave about $76,000 to cover the operational increases across the board. So that's power, insurance, contractual increases, all of those. So I'm quite confident, just assuming this, that we could manage at the rate stabilizer, but what council needs to know is that it does not account for certain things that, one, have been committed to, so that includes the elementary school land, and two, have been identified as strategic priorities. So this is where council will have to have, to the mayor's point, a lot of conversations in the next 3 months, 4 months, with respect to what we will do and what direction we'll get from council to march on with. Just to kind of give you some illustrations, like I mentioned the elementary school, I mentioned a partnership with the provincial health authority. There's an increased allocation for capital, operating the capital, so specifically was earmarked for roads next year to do a bit of catch up. And also we implemented a lot of cost saving mechanisms this year, so it will be challenging for us to go through and identify those again. But again, the sky is not falling. We're just starting our budget request process now, so those are due this week for internally for staff, and then Diane and I sit down together and say, okay, like, what do these numbers mean? And usually we have to kind of move some things around before it gets to council, and then we start getting some of that input from council to weigh into. So that's the summary. If I try to summarize that 9 pages, I don't think it's worth our time to go through it page by page. There's a lot of information there and a lot of numbers, but I think the intent was just to try to illustrate as much as we could what this proposed regulation means for us. And again, there's many things that can change, but it will mean some further direction and conversations from council. So we would welcome if there's any input. We'll take it now. We're not looking for formal direction. But the other piece that like I mentioned is, should council choose, we can submit official input on the regulations. We do sometimes, but I don't see massive value in this particular one, but that's my personal opinion. So I'll leave that to council, but there's no real recommendation either. It's just for information, but I'm happy to answer any questions on our deep dive if there are any.
I appreciate the jumping on and chatting when this came through, and we just want to start to learn more about it. As we go forward. Ollie Nathan, sorry, Councillor.
Okay, good. They would have put their hand up, I think.
Okay, very good. Okay, with that, we can move forward. There's no motions required, information only.
Yeah, unless there's questions, that's it.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 8.3, which is the election of our deputy mayor. And with that, nominations are now in order for the office of deputy mayor. Are there any nominations for deputy mayor? So basically, a council would make a nomination.
I have a nomination.
Okay,
I would like to nominate Phyllis Bannister for deputy mayor.
so we have a nomination for Phyllis Bannister from Councillor Wally. Is there any other nominations? There are no other nominations. That does not need to be seconded.
Maybe I would say it's 3 times.
3 times, yeah. So do we have any other nominations? A third reading, are there any other nominations? Okay, I declare the nominations for deputy mayor closed. There's only one nomination. It's been accepted by do you accept it from the nominee?
This is like a repeat of last.
Well, we only do this every year, so.
First term.
Basically, will you accept the nomination, Councillor
I
Bannister?
do accept.
No,
Thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor Bannister wants to be voted on that. So with that, I will call for I guess we don't have to, we have to self-fulfill vote.
Yeah.
We'll just the motion, it doesn't have to be seconded according to this.
No, we still have to do it. This doesn't have to be seconded, but then it's almost like 2 separate processes.
Okay, so
So we have to do a motion now?
Yeah.
so now we'll like the nomination, I'll need a vote.
Yeah, so then now someone needs to move that.
Okay, so I need a motion to move the deputy, so the Councillor Bannister be put forward for deputy mayor.
I can move that.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor McNeil and seconded by Councillor Oblinus. Any questions to the motion? All right, seeing no questions to the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Congratulations to
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for the nomination. Counselor McNeil?
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.
And procedurally, just the reason why, we have to do those separately is because for the new counselors, it's under the Local Governance Act, we cannot do what we would call like secret ballot votes. So all of them have to be open, which means that the nomination process is, but you can't, the nomination process is almost like moving a motion, but if there are multiple people, you can't move a motion and defeat a motion, then move a motion and defeat a motion, then move a motion and defeat a motion. So you call for nominations because you can't do it by secret ballot. And then once the nominations are closed, then you pass the motion as a formality to basically ratify what was just done through the
I'm
nomination.
just glad the businesses don't have to go through this process. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate that. We'll move on to item 8.4, which is the annual report from 2025.
So this is always ratified with our financial audit. So as council would have seen in the package, the annual report provides an overview of municipal happenings and things going on. Generally complements the audited statements in a way that residents can see and understand a lot easier than the PSAP requirements for the audited statements. So one piece that was added a couple of years ago was our report, or update, I should say, on our strategic plan. This year, we included more of, because it'll be our last annual report with the strategic plan, we included more of a summary of over the last 3 years. Here are a few bullets that we've accomplished under the strat plan. And then we've also done a report card, I would call it, that shows what's been completed, what's been on track, what's been deferred, also as part of the annual report, so that can live for record purposes in the annual report, but will also, similar to the resident survey, be flipped into the upcoming strategic plan that council will adopt later this year once we dive into that process. So this is an annual requirement that we have to do under the act, and there's a recommendation on the floor, and then we can answer any questions that council might have on what happened last year, I guess.
This is a long one to read.
I move that council accept the 2025 town solid rate annual report as presented. I even tried using.
You need a glass of water? Like I was like, but just the one. See, no questions, all. Contrary minded, motion carried. Okay, moving on to 9 bylaws, there's nothing to review this evening. We'll move on to item 10, mayor's and councillor statements. Just quickly, I want to give kudos and a shout out to Lee Steves, Earl Doucette, and Larry Northrop for the nationals at River Blade Motocross nationals, as well as the Atlantic or Maritime Open Championships. There were thousands and thousands of people from across Canada there with so many hundreds of volunteers. So well run. It puts our community on the map, and kudos to them. Same time, Petty Raceway had a fan appreciation day where they had hundreds of people as well. So it just kind of shows in our area where an entrepreneurial spirit can grow. And then I went to the soccer field on Saturday. I really want to give kudos to the Eagle Soccer Club. There were at least 60 to 70 kids on that soccer field on Saturday. They had a goaltending clinic that was going on with people from around the region, as well as another end of the soccer with skills development going on. So that program in the last couple of years, I know council supported it, but it does show when individuals in our community, it's not just council that does things. People in the community, if they so choose, they can drive things and make it happen. So kudos all around for that. Anything from council? Yes.
Just a quick kudos to our staff for the first block party in Ward 3 at Highland Park. I thought it was great. There was a great turnout. Kids really enjoyed it. We had a great time talking to residents in the area. So I'm looking forward to the rest of them.
Well, you know, they didn't do as many hot dogs. I've been at the grill master, but I want to give kudos on that. We're going to give kudos to our grill masters. Because I think 1,000 hot dogs were grilled by the crew here.
2 hours and, 1 hour and 40.
I was gonna say, it wasn't even 2 hours.
Second degree burns.
I'm just gonna, so if Brock, you're watching, I know you're the grill master. But these are the true grill masters. The gauntlet's been thrown down. If you can do 1,000 hot dogs, you can get that title back.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
It was. I just make the joke because some of our staff that like to call themselves drill masters. I actually did tell them at the block party.
Go,
I said-
because they're
I
right
said-
there.
I said, you can't take that trailer anymore after what I watched on Canada Day.
We'll have to coordinate like a playlist so that we can be the singing.
All right.
Drill
Great
master.
idea, great idea.
Music stuff.
Well, I was gonna say.
The music was fantastic
It
and,
was.
I mean, we were all kind of
Yeah.
bopping and singing. and
They're a great band.
Well, he's eventually gonna play a song that everybody knows, like
Yeah.
his
He
repertoire
was
is so good.
incredible. It was an incredible event. Wow.
Well, Thursday night.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
know, those are music.
Yeah.
Canada Day was a great event, and I just wanted to give a recognition as well back in the day to Shirley Morrissey, who was one of the forerunners to get grants from
Oh, yes.
from the Heritage Department in order to buy a cake, one cake.
Okay.
Where this year, not only did you serve 1,000 hot dogs, but you had 5 cakes that went out in that amount of time.
They're all on.
It has progressed and we're getting so many more people out, but it had to start somewhere. So I want to thank Shirley for having that impetus to start that at that time. So it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, and with that, we will now move on to number 11, notices of motions and resolutions, item 11.1, forest fire equipment gifting agreement from the government of New Brunswick.
So this is a program that DNR is rolling out with volunteer departments across the province. It requires the formal execution of an agreement, hence why it's on the council agenda, but the intent is that we receive some refurbished equipment that will increase our forest fire equipment or our roster of equipment available to us. That's been a priority for the department, both I would say the last year and a half, and through budget deliberations. Council will see in August, the next meeting. We'll be presenting a community wildfire resiliency plan. So all these things are kind of feeding into it. It complements well another, a skid that's being added to our 3/4 ton truck that will allow us to have access to water essentially. A small amount, not enough to put out a forest fire, but enough to hopefully stop and stall some of the progression of them. So all these pieces are kind of coming in together, but this specific, contingent of equipment is coming from GMB, from the Department of Natural Resources, and requires the execution of the agreement before we formally accept it. So,
All right, we need a motion.
Well, I'll do it. I'll move that council authorize the execution of the gifting agreement between the town of Salisbury and His Majesty the King in right of the province for the acquisition of a refurbished Wajax Mac 3 high-pressure fire pump and associated equipment as part of a provincial initiative to increase forest fire readiness, and authorize the mayor clerk to sign and affix the corporate seal accordingly.
Moved by Councillor Thorne, seconded by Councillor Delant. Questions to the motion? Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. We'll move on to item 11.2, trail easement for PID number 703-99431 and 00949339.
There's 2 motions on this one, same purpose or intent, for easements in favor of the town for trail access on 2 pieces of private property. As part of trail work that's being undertaken this year. One matches our template agreement and one matches one of our modified agreements for more of a corporate structure or entity, similar to what was done in 2024. And these are the registered documents, the legal documents that are registered on the property that ensure we have a right of way, basically, to ensure the public has access to the trail. So with that, there's 2 recommendations on the floor, and I can answer any questions.
I'll move that council authorize the clerk and the mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedules for PIDs bearing numbers 703-99431 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of public access trail easement.
Second.
So moved by Deputy Mayor Bannister, seconded by Councillor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
I'll read the next one.
Yep.
I move that council authorize the clerk and mayor to sign and affix the corporate seal on the easement forms and associated schedules for PIDs bearing number 00949339 in favor of the town of Salisbury as the grantee for the purposes of public access trail easement.
Seconded. By Deputy Mayor Bannister, seconded by Councilor Glenn. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried. Moving on to item 11.3, conventional boundary agreement, municipal property, Powers Pit Road.
So the town owns what was the former dump on Powers Pit Road, before the regional landfills, were implemented a number of years ago. We undertook a survey to identify or delineate where the property lines are, which identified that there's some areas where pins are not recognizable essentially. So what the surveyors have to do when it's adjacent to other property owners is use landmarks to then try to identify where the property lines are. However, all of the property owners must essentially agree to it. In this case, there's one private owner and two public owners, one being the town and one being the Department of Transportation Infrastructure. This is not committing to any project or anything of the sorts. It's just identifying the boundaries of the property in question. So the province has signed off, and we're in conversations with the landowner now to formalize those boundaries and where that line is. And the resolution will just confirm that the town will enter into what is called conventional boundary agreement on the survey plans. There's a recommendation on the floor, and we can answer any questions.
I'll move that council authorize the execution of the conventional boundary agreement determining formal property lines for the town-owned land on Powers Pit Road as per the plan prepared by Daggle Surveys dated July 28th, 2025, bearing map number 21H14Z3 and job number 16849, and authorize the clerk and mayor to sign the plan on behalf of the town of Salisbury accordingly.
Seconded.
Moved by Councilor Thorne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bannister. Questions to the motion? No questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Now moving on to item 11.4, appointment of the auditors for 2026.
It also follows our annual ratification of the audit, but it's to appoint the audit for 2026, this current year, to be audited next year. One piece that we'll flag is that we've done a year-over-year reappointment of our current auditors, Ernst & Young, or EY. We're recommending continuing that. They've been our auditors for a number of years. But also the other piece that we'll flag that we haven't gone out for a multi-year piece is that many municipalities are struggling to find and or retain auditors, significantly struggling. And so we don't envy them. Our auditor has been, like EY has been able to take on some of them, but a lot of them continue to go from one auditor to the other. A lot of auditors don't love the public service accounting board standards or requirements. Like, it's not the usual thing that they're used to. So it's relatively niche, and many municipalities are struggling to find auditors. So we're recommending continuing to do it year over year. We just want to flag the rationale as to why we're continuing to do that. But with that, there's a recommendation on the floor, and then we can answer any questions the council might have.
I'll move the council appoint Ernst & Young as the town of Salisbury auditors for 2026.
So moved by Deputy Mayor Bannister, seconded by Councilor Thorne. Questions to the motion? See no questions, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
We need one. Moved by Councilor Thorne, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.